Hi, this is David Lee for Outside the Book here at the Southern Kentucky Festival of Books. And we're joined by Jean Auel, the author of the Earth Children series, 6 books. The first book is The Clan of the Cave Bear. Most recent book is The Land of Painted Caves. 6 books. Jean tells me 1,700,000 words, a pretty impressive output. Jean, I guess my first question is, you've said that you wrote the first book in this creative burst.
Yes.
But it's been almost 9 years since the 5th book. I know your fans have been wondering, where's the 6th book? Where has the 6th book been?
Well, I actually, in that creative burst, what I did was write a big mass that has ended up being the outline for all 6 books. So it wasn't really just the first book. And then I went back and realized, after doing several things, that it was the first book of 6. But there is still a big space of time between this last one, 9 years, and there was 12 years between the 4th and the 5th book. And my only excuse is, I guess I'm getting lazy. I don't know. It's sometimes life gets in the way. When I started out, I had 5 children, and I had 3 daughters in college and 2 sons in high school, and now I've got 5 kids and their spouses and 15 grandkids and 8 great-grandkids, and, life gets in the way.
Well, this is the Land of Painted Caves.
Yes.
Why do you think art was important to people 30,000 years ago?
Because we invented art. They were the ones who invented art, and they're our great-grandparents. So it wasn't until modern humans came on the scene that art came on the scene. So, actually, I have to tell you the truth. When I hear of schools thinking that they're going to save budget money, because they're going to cut out the art programs, because that's how we're defined. Because there was no art before we came. It's the earliest art in humanity's history. And it came on the scene almost full-blown. I mean, we're talking about horses and cattle and mammoths and lions and these kinds of things. And they're beautiful and they're wonderfully made, and they're done with, in 3-dimension and all of those qualities. And they also used, the bumps and the dips on the cave walls to add dimensionality to it. So then, of course, when you come through with a flickering firelight, because you got a torch or you got a grease lamp, and that light flickers and that changes the shadows, and the shadows then, make them look like they're moving. I mean, those guys knew what they were doing.
When you're in these caves yourself and looking at this work, how do you feel? What's in your mind?
No. The first cave that I was ever in was Lascaux. And there are 3 crown jewels. It's Lascaux, Altamira in Spain, and the new one, Chauvet, which was just found in 1994. And I have been in all of the caves that I mentioned in that book. I've been in, except for one small one that I couldn't find someone to show me, so I had to get that from reading sources. But when I first went into Lascaux, and there's this whole process you go through, because when people go in there, they damage the cave just because of being, just because of living. Because when we breathe out carbon dioxide. And the caves are calcium carbonate, and it affects the caves. So they have really put a limitation on it. Even Lascaux, they only allow, I think it's no more than 5 people a day for no more than 45 minutes. 1 day a week they give it a rest, or they used to, I think they still do. And 1 month out of the year, to try and let people see it, but not in crowds. But it was marvelous, because you go through this process of, you go into this one room and your eyes start getting adjusted to the light, then you go into the next room, and then you finally get to one and you dip your shoes in a solution of formaldehyde and antibiotics, I understand. And finally you go through the last door, and they keep the lights dim, because bright lights will fade things. Even rock art, it'll fade. And so, I'm watching my footing, and I'm going down, and finally it's a ramp to go down, and finally I get to the bottom, and there's a railing there, and I hang on, and I look up, and I go, and I am just overwhelmed. I mean, I'm holding my breath, and I didn't even know it. And then I start to breathe again, and I'm in tears. It's so fantastically beautiful. And you can't imagine that this stuff I mean, I can understand why the people who first saw it couldn't believe how old it was. Because, I mean, that's 25,000 years old. And it's hard, it looks so fresh because the cave had been sealed up. So nobody was getting into it. Nobody was doing anything except, just the natural processes. And that's the way it is. Chauvet is the same way. All of these caves are painted with more than one color. So it's multicolored. Mostly red and black is what they use, but still red ochre and black charcoal or black manganese dioxide.
One of the reasons your books encompass 1.7 million words is the details are very important to you, and your acknowledgments are to long lists of distinguished and careful scholars. Why are those details so important to you?
Well, as a novelist, you never know who's reading your books. And if you read a book and it's got something in it that is wrong, then you don't want to read that book anymore because you can't trust it, right? So I'm trying to make it as, for all the people who may know something, I want to make it as accurate as I can so that they can read my book and they can suspend their sense of disbelief and believe it could all be true. And that's what all writers of fiction want.
You have an MBA.
Yes, I do.
And your business plan was to write a wildly successful book about a 5-year-old girl who lived 30,000 years ago. How'd you ever sell that?
People said I'd never sell it. And of course, if I had planned to write a bestseller, I would not have picked Upper Paleolithic Caveman as my subject. I don't know where the idea came from. I thought I was looking for a job. I'd quit my job because I didn't see that the future was in that company, even though they paid for my MBA. You got to remember, I'm on the leading edge of that wedge. I mean, there were not very many women in business yet, and they were just starting. And so it was, I wanted to go off and find something else wonderful in business, and that's what I thought I was going to do. That's what I got my degree in. But then I got this idea for a story, and this idea was of a young woman or a girl who was living with people who were different. And I didn't mean just superficially, not different color hair or eyes or skin, but actually substantially different, significantly different. And I don't know why, I just thought it would be an interesting idea. And so I had her living with these people, but of course they thought she was different because, like beauty, differences in the eyes of the beholder. And so they were letting her stay because she was taking care of an old man with a crippled arm. And I don't know, I have no idea where that came from. It's just something buzzing around. No writer can really tell you where the ideas come from. So I thought my husband was going to bed. It was, after the news when we usually go to bed. And he said, come on, it's getting late. And I said, no, I want to see if I can write a short story. I had never written one before, but, he knows I'm a little off the wall, so it was okay. And I sat down and started to do it. And what happened is that I got about, I don't know, 3 hours into it, and I was realizing that this was fun, except I didn't know what I was writing about. Who were these people, and what did they look like, and what did if you write a contemporary novel and you can say, he got in his car and drove into the city and had lunch. No problem. Doesn't matter what city. It can be Bowling Green. It can be New York. It can be Tokyo. It can be Johannesburg, any place, Everybody knows what that means. But where does a caveman go to have lunch?
That's a wonderful way to kind of hook into the story. Where does a cave person go to have lunch? And I hate to stop this. You've got a fascinating story, and you've written a fascinating story.
Thank you.
Jean Auel, thanks for being with us on Outside the Book.
Thank you very much.